joining VistaView Solutions Reporting 2.0 in SAP Business by Design with your host, Laura Herculo. My name is Catherine, and I will be facilitating today. We'll be recording this session, so everyone will remain on mute, and then, of course, the recording will be sent out next week. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions or the chat box window at any time. And, of course, Laura will answer them near the end of this presentation. Please don't forget to join us for next week's Q&A Café on Wednesday, February the 10th for fixed asset procurement in SAP Business by Design. You can find registration information about that on our resources page on our website, or of course in the email sent out next week as well. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Laura.
Great, thank you so much. So hi again, everybody, for our New Year, starting our New Year's editions of the Q&A Cafe today. Back by popular demand reporting, we're going to do a little bit more of a different type of spin on reporting, so it's a reporting 2.0 to take you on some more of the key user type activities that you might want to embark on, as opposed to more the end user type reporting of the drag and drop and some things like that. So let's get started. So the agenda today, we are going to look at how we create new data sources. So how we do different table joins, what the meanings are, what you will see in the different table joins, and we'll walk through an example. Then I'm going to go through creating key figures. So within ByDesign, there's the capability to create two different types of key figures, one calculated and the other one is restricted. The restricted one is typically one that might not get used quite a bit, but it's got a lot of good benefits to it. And then we'll go into just some of the reports, and I'm going to show you some of the other cooler aspects of, these are more on the end user side of it, but being able to create report filters and then report highlighting, so conditional type of highlighting on your key figures that just make your reports pop a little bit more and are a little bit more visually stimulating for your end users, and really just kind of draw your eye to, specific areas that need attention within within that particular report or area within the business. And like Catherine said, if you have any questions, just please to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and then we will, or the questions area, and then we'll get to them at the end. The presentation is also uploaded into the handout section. I would highly recommend downloading it. I found a bunch of different blogs out there that kind of go into a little bit deeper topics of these, some of these topics. So mostly the restricted figures and the table joins. So you might find a little bit more useful step-by-step type guidance within those different blogs. So let's start with one of the more probably, I'm not going to say complex topics in ByDesign, but again, one of the more advanced topics in ByDesign, where you might say, I've got a great example is production. There's about 15 different types of production data sources in the system, but some might have certain characteristics and others might have other characteristics. And rather than having to run 5 or 6 different reports or setting up 5 or 6 different tabs in an Excel format just to get the data you want, it makes more sense to say, all right, well, all this is happening within a production order. Why can't I just link all of this data from my input and output products, and then the times, and then the confirmation quantities and things like that into one big massive report, so I can see everything in one view. And that's absolutely possible in ByDesign. We don't want you saying, God, ByDesign is so restrictive in reporting. This enables you to extend the reporting in the system. So it allows you to do a whole bunch of different things. There's 3 different types of data source joins within ByDesign. So we're going to go through those, and I'll kind of give you an example of what sort of what you should expect if you start playing around with these and you start looking at them and what's going to come out. So the simplest one is going to be your combined data source, which is basically taking table A and table B and slapping the 2 together. So whatever's in one and whatever's in the other, you're going to get an amalgamation of data out of the both of them. So, in some cases, like say you want to, if we didn't already have like a sales order report and an invoicing report, you might say, all right, show me all of these reports to, all this data together, and it'll just merge all that data into one. So it tries to link as much as it can together. The one that's probably most used is going to be your left outer join. And it's probably the one that as you start laying out the links of your data sources, probably the trickier ones where you want to really start to think about, what do I want to analyze at its highest level? So do I want to say, show me all of my customers that haven't had a sale in 6 months? Do I want to, show the last time that something happened? Maybe you want to look at all of your customers, or you might just want to see a subset. So depending on where you're linking and how you're linking, between whether it's in the left or the right, is going to show you the more or the less data. So if you look at this, this little chart here, my left table is going to be something that's going to be it's going to be what we call the anchor. So that's going to show you all of your data. And then the right table is going to join to that, and it's going to just show you the subset. So let's say you just showed on the left table your sales orders for this year, and then you linked it to the account. I know not very logical because you already have that, but let's say you had 10 customers with sales and you had 100 customers. If you had the sales on the sales on the left and the account on the right, you're only going to return the subset of the 10 customers that had sales. Whereas if you flip-flopped it and the left table was your anchor, which was the account, then I would see all 100 accounts, but then I would only see those, and then I would also see those 10 accounts that had sales. So hopefully that makes sense. So it is kind of a logical thing, and you really want to lay out exactly what you do, because within the joined area, and as you're doing your master data joins, you can link up to 5 tables, and within each of those tables, you can pick different anchor points and different join types. So it can get pretty extravagant, if you will, as you go through that process to start to join your tables. I'm always like check, recheck. The way that I work in these, I kind of start with, rather than going whole hog and going for the 5 data sources that I want, I'll start with 2, make sure it's resulting in the format that I want and it's giving me certain results, and then I can continually go back and add upon that. You're not married to sort of just doing it once, and then if it's wrong, you have to delete it. You can always correct as you move through, and SAP gives you some tools that it does do a lot of checking, consistency checking for you, and it'll help you do some smart mapping and things like that, as you'll see. And then the last is probably the most restrictive. So it's an inner join. So it basically says what's on the left and what's on the right, and it marries the 2 together. So if you've got, we'll show, let's look at an example here. So at its simplest, I've got my account, again, my account table. So I've got my 4 accounts. Oops, and let's say that they've got 100 here and nothing here, and then 150 here. So we've got 150 in sales, and then nothing here. So if I did my left outer, what would happen was, if I anchored to the left with my account, I'll see all of my accounts, and then it'll merge it with the sales value of 150. If I did flip this and I did a left outer join where my sales value is my anchor, it would look exactly the same as this table. But now, because I've got this account and my sales volume, it's going to link with the accounts, and my inner join is just going to take something that has that's the same in both tables. So it's really just going to say, if this exists here and the same exists here, show it. If not, just remove it from the list. So you'll see a much smaller list if you're doing these inner join type reports. So let's walk through, and then here's just a quick example of like a combined data source as well. So if you're looking at really your material master data for all 8 different products that are listed here, 7 different products that are listed here, the suppliers that are there, and then your data source for the purchase order ID. It's going to take and show you all of the master data from one side. So it's going to actually start to show you again like multiples. So you'll see like MCD 00001, the supplier here, the product category from this data source, and then that it's a service, and then it's going to show you that there's a purchase order ID and 0. So you got to, I would say, be very, very careful when you're using the combined data source, just because you'll get a proliferation of data in there, because it's trying to just merge and give you a complete data dump of everything. So I typically stay on the joins, So this is, again, it's a key user tool. So an advanced user, you would be in your business analytics, and you'll see that you've got an option here called design data sources. And then as you open up your options, you've got that combined data source, so that sort of sits alone, and then your joint data source. So I've kind of already sort of pre-baked this, just because it takes a little bit of time to bring in the tables and things like that, but we'll walk through this. So, you know, as I create, we'll just start with a blank one using the same sort of theoretical values in here, just to show you how the process works. So we'll just look, again, very simple kind of accounts and sales. Obviously, we already have that in ByDesign, but it's just very easy for us to pull that data. So let's pull that left outer join, and we're going to say, well, I want all of my accounts on the left, and then I want my sales on the right. And then I can have my different data source. So here's where I start to pick the different data sources that I want. So maybe I want my account master data. And account details. Yeah. Nope, account master data. And then it'll start walking you through. So it's going to show you in here all of the fields that are available. So again, really easy for you to select all and pull all the data in. Again, sometimes it might not make sense. If you just want a really specific report, this will, by paring down the amount of data in here, is going to give you faster results and things like that. So, you know, I'm just gonna pull the address. Maybe that's all I want. And so you'll have all of your available fields for that customer record. Then that becomes now your anchor table. So you'll see if my join visualization that this guy is now my anchor, and then if there's any restrictions. You can also use this to set authorization restrictions for who can see what sort of data. And then when I go back, now I can start to add new tables. And so we'll just add that sales volume table in here. Again, sales order item and header is typically the one that I use, sales order item. And then again, I can take here, so my existing parts, I see I can start to now link, how do I want to pull in this data? So how do I want to join it together? So if you think about, you know, back in the olden days before you had ByDesign, where SAP took care of doing all the table joins. So in an old-fashioned system, like let's say you were working then maybe in like a Crystal Reports or SQL Reports and things like that. And so your old system, you're pulling out table 1, which is your material master, table 2 is your account master, and things like that. And you have to take care to make those logical joins. This is that same process where we're making the logical joins. And by doing this, it again restricts your data. So if you don't do this right, in certain cases, you might be doubling, tripling, quadrupling your data. So it's always pretty important, depending on what you are linking, that you are putting the right logical links together. But in our example, this one is super easy. We just want to highlight. So you'll take your left source and our right source, and if you highlight both, we now add that link. So you can add as many links as you want for that particular join. Right. But the system's also going to propose different data sources too. So that's actually a really nice tool, because if you know you want all of your accounts, but you're not quite sure what else you can logically link to, the system will tell you all the other data sources that have kind of similar join types in there to allow you to do some to allow you to create these different types of joined data sources. And then I can also either select, select fields from here, or I can add new fields from, from either of these reports just by clicking on the add from. And then you can also preview, which is, again, really nice. This is that sort of concept of, let's just test out what kind of results am I getting? Did I do my links right? So I can add my different row fields in here. And then we can say, like, as I'm coming in, my key figures, whoops, I only have a counter, and that's just coming from my master data. So now I forgot that I had to actually add some key figure data in here. So we'll go in and we'll add maybe our net value from our key figures. So I can go scroll all the way down and see all the key figures for the reports. And so maybe I do just want to look at my total for here. And what's nice as we're in here creating these different data sources too, so you'll see as I bring these in, this field is also going to be editable. So, like if you were saying, I'm going to link the, in my example, I linked sales order and contracts together because there's not really necessarily one view that gives me a full revenue picture if I had sales, service, and contracts together. So I can edit the key figures in here to make them more explanatory, where I'm looking and saying that, this is the total of sales orders. So you don't necessarily have to keep the standard key figure names, which again, I see that as a complaint a lot, that you can't rename these things. So, even just creating a quick data source in here allows you to rename your key figures for those different reports that you're creating. All right. And so we'll just add one more in here, but now you can again see that you've got your join visualization, so you can see exactly how that goes. And when I pop back into my preview, now I'll see my different key figures. So I added, actually, let's add that in. Did I save it? Oh, there we go. So update model, sorry about that. So as I'm making changes, again, now you'll see that all your key figures and other fields that you're adding in there are gonna update and refresh. And again, another nice feature too is that you've got all of your real-time data that's being displayed in here. But let's add another data source, and we'll put in the contract item too, just so again you can see how once you start bringing these things into multiple data sources, now I can say, you see on your left side, I've got on my right my customer contracts, so that's my newer data source that comes in. Do I want to do this successively? So do I want to say, all right, I'm going to look at all of my account masters, and I'm going to link that. I've already linked that by account to the sales order item. Do I want to take the data from this sales order item and then make that the left outer join to the customer contract item, which will then say, all right, if they don't have a sales order, but they have a contract, it won't show it. Or do I want to take it from the account master and link that? So then that's going to show me all of the data. So it's going to show me the all the accounts, and then it's going to show me, regardless whether it has a sales order or a contract, it's going to show me both of the data sources there, or results. So that's just, again, some of the decisions that you'll make as you go through your creation of this data source, right? And so that's really it. Like I said, for me, I always say, if you've got your join conditions, the system's checking, you can edit your join conditions at any point in time. I can change sometimes and use, depending on your business configuration settings, you can change and use access context controls, so you can, as you're creating these, restrict them, because sometimes there's a setting in business configuration where you can say, no matter what happens if I'm creating a custom report, don't restrict them by the work center views that people have, because you might want to show certain reports like in a home work center and things like that. But in other cases, you might want to restrict them by authorization policy. All right. So I will go out and we'll just pop back into the data source that I created here. And we can see again, this is a very, very simple sort of an example where I'm just pulling my account name. And if I'm looking at, I want to look at things like my, open sales, open sales and open contracts. So I just pulled in 2 key figures of my net value for sales and my net amount for contracts. And then my joins, again, are very, very simple. I just loaded everything from a left join of all my accounts and then linked those to the contract and the sales as left outer joins to both of those transactional data sources. Once we're done creating that data source, we then have to deploy it out to a new report. And so you would then go back into the same area and click on your new report, and then go through the steps of creating the report, what your default values are and things like that. I think we've gone through that in a separate session, so I won't spend necessarily any time doing that. But the end result is going to be your report, which you then can assign to all the different work centers that need it within the system. Let's call this one Q&A Cafe. All right, and so we've got this Q&A Cafe with our joined data, and then I can edit this guy with my web browser anytime I want to make my new fields. And so here's sort of the end result of that report, where I'm seeing here's all my accounts, here's my net value of sales for anything that's in process, and for both my contracts and my contracts and sales orders that have open data. Right. And then you can change any of the views. You can add fields anytime you want. Like I said, if you're creating your data sources and you want to throw in all of the fields, you can further restrict those as you get to create the web report. And then that just allows your users to be able to go in, if you restrict them in there, it doesn't preclude them from adding those through the add fields option if they find that they like the report and they just want other data in here. So that is the join data sources. Now what I'm also going to do in here, I'm going to take this report and then I'm going to say, all right, this is great. So now I'm looking at kind of a side-by-side view of my sales. That's great, my sales, my contract. So now I see kind of total customer value that I might not otherwise have been able to see, or would have had to look at 2 or 3 different reports in ByDesign to get this information. So now I can basically take this data, and what I can do is create a calculated value. So now I want to say, rather than having to look at side by side and then having to dump into Excel and doing my own sums and things like that, that doesn't make sense. But I want to let the system do it so I can just deploy this out and everybody can have it. So let's create a calculated key figure and then add those 2 fields together. And so that's a pretty simple option. As we go into the key figures, there's 2 different options. And so I mentioned download the presentation, and you'll see the links to these 2 really good blogs that are out in the SAP blog area. So it shows you how to create the calculated key figures, and it gives you, and this is really a very, very good a good reference for you, I feel, because it's got each of the different operators, because you'll see when we get into the calculated key figures that it just kind of, outside of the mathematical plus minus whatever, there's also ones like trigonometric ones and data operators and Boolean operators and things like that, they don't spell them out. So this really tells you what each symbol means and things like that and how it works. So I highly recommend, if you are sort of dipping your toe into the key figures area, check it out. All right, so we'll go into our design key figures. And so I have already created one, and we'll just go in and actually view this. It's sales and contract value. And as we go into edit, this is exactly the process that you'll look through. So whether you're creating a calculated key figure or a restricted key figure, you'll see that that option in the radio button pop up. And then what you'll do is select your data source, so which data source you're going to choose. Now, it could be your custom one that you just created, but it could be based on any other data source that's in the system. So what I always recommend is that, when you first start out doing this, if you're looking for a specific key figure to show up, let's say I'm going to show you one for the opportunity. Look at the report where you want it to show up, and then on the right hand side, so let's look in here real quick on the design reports. It just saves a lot of time if you do it first before you start backing into a key figure. So if I'm going to do like an opportunity type restricted key figure or a new key figure based on opportunities, we can always look on the right here for the data source name. So that's always going to be the one that you're going to reference. And so always check out, do I want to add this key figure to an opportunity pipeline report or volume, just because I'm doing it for an opportunity. And maybe as an example, the funnel, the opportunity header, and item all have an expected value in it. I can't just say, show me expected value and then create this calculated key figure off expected value and have it show up in all of the representative data sources. You're actually picking where it needs to show up in a specific data source. So I created this, just the key figure, sales and contract value. I'm basing it on that new data source that I just created for account, contract, and sales. And then we could, again, walk through that guided procedure. And you'll have a bunch of options here. So you've got kind of the basic key figures. So these are going to be the ones that have shown up in what I created in that custom data source. And then you might have already created other restricted key figures or other calculated key figures. So the nice thing about this is that you can go kind of iteratively and create other types of key figures that that extend one upon another. Commissions is a good example sometimes where you might say, show me all of the sales for a particular product category, and then you restrict that, and then this product category multiplies out by like 5%, and that's the commission for that product category versus the commissions for another product category at 10%. So you can see again how you can kind of take one and daisy chain the figures together. Could be also certain parameters, and then there's also sort of common dates that you can use too. So if I want to say a key date based on today or things like that, I can add those guys in. And again, here's your notice that you've got your keypad and the Boolean operations. And so some of these are pretty easy, like less than, greater than, equal to, and, or. I mean, those are pretty straightforward. But then once we get into some of these other types of mathematical or data type operations, are not so they're not as explicit. So absolute or absolute value, or if you have negatives and positives and you always want to show as a positive, I can show that. If I want to just show what the sign is, things like that, have those. And then you've got other options in here on your data for counting the greater than a certain percentage, and then other trigonometric ones, which are getting a little bit probably things that I would say more often than not use, that you'll probably mostly be using these the keypad Boolean and the mathematical type of ones. So as we get into creating these, creating the actual calculations, what I found, it's not the most user-friendly in terms of how things are structured in here to create them, because you're basically clicking, you're clicking and then the system is sort of adding where it needs to. So it's not like you're typing in what that field is and then using standard things like if you were in Excel, like if this is that, then use this. You're basically kind of saying like, if it's, if X field, so if I'm putting here, if the net amount So I'm clicking net amount greater than. So you're always sort of wanting to click again before, before that question mark sign, and then you can put ands in here. So now I can start to get sort of a little bit tricky, but it's always in here more of a, double click what you want. So if I want the net amount, that's gonna overlay that question mark. And then I'm gonna say, again, simple, super simple, my net amount, the contract, and the net amount sales, and that's gonna be my contract value. Okay. And once you get through then to the properties, again, this is gonna be, I typically steer clear of a lot of these unless I have, examples of, if I want to say something like, I want to see the last time that that I changed a customer record, because I want to see the the last time that I touched them, or the last time that they had an activity or something like that. I could select things like the last value or maximum. I can sum all things. I can show totals and variances. So this is really just how that result is going to be calculated as it's then displayed in your report. And then you've got, again, your single values that are in here. You can also show more cumulative type results. So if I've got, I'm looking at a customer report and they've got 100, and they ordered 100 in January, 200 in February, 300 in March. The report would show, January is 100, February is 300, and March as 600 if it started to calculate up, because it's going to accumulate those results. And there's different aggregation types and conversion types. There's, again, in that blog, it's going to show you those different options. So once I do, I can go ahead and I can create another key figure. The nice thing about that is if you are doing one report and adding 4 or 5 or 6 different key figures, most of the stuff is done for you in the beginning of selecting the data table and stuff like that. So it makes it very easy. But then once I go back into my report, what your users will do, or what you'll do as the administrator, as you're creating this new report, it doesn't automatically show up available within your key figures. You'll go into the add fields option, and when you select the key figures, there's this new area that shows up that's going to be your own key figures, and you'll see that sales and contract value to be able to bring in. And then that'll show up. We could pop that into our report. And so now I can see all of the data that's combined for my my net value of my sales, as well as the contract. So again, total overall sales value for a particular customer. Okay. Let's flip over and we'll do a just a restricted key figure. So I've got one that's in here again. Let's see. Did an opportunity one. So I created one in here just called ops above the value proposition phase. So maybe in my CRM, as I'm starting to nurture an opportunity and I've got my expected value and things like that I'm maintaining, but I don't really know, and I don't want to include it in the pipeline, or I don't really want to look at it until it gets above a certain phase or a certain stage. I can take that result and I can say, all right, show me the whole pipeline regardless of the stage, and that's my standard expected value, but then show me the subset of this only by X phase and above. So now I can see those, rather than, again, running 2 reports or having 2 different selections. I can now see total above, side by side. So we're going to do ops above the value proposition, and we're going to base it, do a restricted key figure this time based on the expected value. And so that's, again, pretty simple. So I can say I can take that characteristic and I can choose one or many, which is, again, really very nice in here that I can choose, one or many. I can have these all also variable if I need to restrict that data. But I chose a fixed one, so nothing can change in there. And what I'll do is set my fixed value selections. And what I had chosen was close, decision, qualify op, and quotation. So those are the phases that are past that qualification stage. And again, same options that are available here as they were in the regular key figure. However, I want to convert them again. I'm just going to leave that blank. And then when I go into some opportunities, so let's say I'm looking at my opportunity lines here. Now that I created that, same option is going to happen. So I'll add my fields. You'll see your key figure. You've got your own key figures now, which is just the qualified ops. So as a quick opportunity now, I can pull this in and see this really nice data here of saying, all right, my total pipeline might be like $1 million, but my qualified ops are at 0 here. So you'll get a lot of, obviously opposite, very good data kind of side by side within here. Right, and then, so that is kind of showing you your restricted, your calculated key figures. And then let's look at this kind of more along the lines of, there's our qualified versus all. So now I can see, again, going back to that with the restricted key figure, here's my qualified ops, and then all ops versus here. Here's all of them at 125, but the ones that are just qualified are 80. So if I am looking at more of a pipeline, I can see really what's more expected to close within that time frame. All right. And so let's switch this view then to look at our qualified by all with the data. So there's different ways that now we can use conditional formatting or line filtering. The line filtering is almost like doing a restricted key figure, doing selections in the system. But it allows you to do some other kind of nice things in here. So let's take a look at that, and we'll go into the key figure settings. So we've got value filters and then the conditional formatting. So let's look at our value filters. And if you want to look at these, we can say we've got our filters. So maybe I can do simple conditions or ranked conditions. Maybe I just want to see the top 5 in my pipeline. So let's see the top 5 contributors. To my pipeline. And so I'll take that key figure and I'll look at my expected value of the ops. And so you can pick any key figure and pull that guy in, and we'll do a ranked condition and then my characteristics. So I'm going to do it based on the account, and you can select again any sort of account. So maybe I don't necessarily want I want to see the top 5 opportunities. I would select the top 5 opportunities. So whatever you select here is going to be your ranked condition. So maybe if I select calendar year, it's going to show me the top 5 opportunities that are extended throughout the whole year or something for the month. So this is really just the ranking characteristic that the system is using. So let's look at it by account, and we're going to say you can do a top bottom count, a top bottom percent. This is a great tool to use if you are more of a products-based business and you're trying to do maybe ABC calculations for movement on your inventory. I know one of the things that are coming into the system at some point in time are the ability to do mass changes on products based on the report results. So if you've seen some of the other Q&A cafes, now there's these navigational targets that I can run account and supplier reports to be able to block, unblock, set an ABC status. So things like that are going to start to trickle into the system. But, if I do want to set up, as an example, my top 20% of my customers that are 80% of my sales, I can set that up and then change my account data in there to my ABC class. So these kinds of filters are really helpful for that. So let's just look at the top count though. We'll do the top 5. And you'll see those as contributors. You can add as many new ones, but what you'll find with the value filters and the conditions, for one particular view, only one can be active at the same time. So maybe if you've got, it's more relevant and prevalent on the conditional formatting side, where you might have quantity ordered and and value ordered, and you want to highlight both sides, you can only highlight one column at a time. You can create multiple views with the different highlights, but it's only one can be active at a time. But this doesn't apply, just to note also, this doesn't apply to all of your report views. It's only for the particular view that you're looking at right now, and the view and the save of that particular view. So let me change this here real quick, and we'll pull the account in because that's what we're drilling on. And then we'll see that this guy is active. So we want to make that active. And now you'll see here's just my top 5 of my accounts, and I can save that guy as like top 5 ops. Right. So that's a nice little filter there, and we can pop back into our qualified data. And let's say that now we want to show any of my opportunities that are less than $50,000, because I'm a big guy. I don't want to waste my time on something like a $2,000 opportunity because it just costs more to get that business. So let's close that opportunity down. We want to highlight to the sales manager of where we need to either try to upsell them during the opportunity or just cut bait. So let's pull in the opportunities. Whoops, sorry. We will pull in our conditional formatting, and so we can do a new. So we'll say, op value. And then we'll take, again, our expected value. And here's where I can apply it to. I can just say apply it to the data and the result, and the result. So depending on your aggregation within this report, it will show you these highlights in different areas. This is really a summarized type report. So I'm going to show it. I'm just going to say show it in the result, which would mean like if I just show it in the data, like let's say, for a particular account, they've got 3 opportunities that equal $60,000 total. But in our example, we want to show opportunities that are less than $30,000. If I had one for 10, 20, and 40 for a total of $70,000, if I showed just the data as a highlight, you'd only see that 10 and $20,000 opportunity highlighted. If I said data and result, you'd still see the same thing. If I said just show a result, you wouldn't see any highlight because of the result itself was $70,000 for that full account and opportunity. All right. And then you have your options for different indicators, which again, just visually what you want to see, whether they're arrows, they'll be up, down, red, up is green, down is red, right's gonna be yellow, background color. I like background color the best. It definitely draws your eyes and your attention more towards the background color. And then there's the traffic light. So if you're familiar with any of the traffic light concepts within ByDesign, from availability to supply planning and different areas in the system, that traffic light concept, and it'll just pop it right down the side of your data. But let's do the background color. So we're gonna say, greater than $100,000. Let's put that in green because I really like that. Those are the ones that are making me happy, and I want to make sure I follow through with those. And then anything less than, let's just say $20,000, I'm going to put that in red. So you can have as many conditional formattings appear in that column that you want just by adding the different conditions and the thresholds. All right. Oops, I think I just changed that to the result. Let's pop that back in. Let's edit that. So we want that to the data and the result. So now we see that that has dynamically changed. So we've got our data here, anything that's less than, and then maybe if I switch this out from month and year to account, I'll see that, I'll again see that dynamically change. And because I have this applied to the data and the result, if I pull this in if I pull an opportunity in to here as well, you'll see that same type of formatting is going to follow through as I start to drill down more and more into the data. But I will touch on too, I mean, once you do create these systems, whether you, or these new reports, you know, once you do have this report listed, so if I've got this Q&A Cafe report, you'll see once I'm done creating a brand new report in the system, you would want to go through, so you'll also notice that your assignment's not in there, and then you would go through the assignment of this report to the different work centers. Like I mentioned, there is a business configuration setting that says, you know, ignore all the authorization restrictions. I think that's obviously, for me, that's a little dangerous in production. You have to be really careful on who you're sharing certain data with, but in certain cases it does make sense. You know, by default, whether you have restrictions and things turned on in here, your data sources will show you, like I said, I don't have any restrictions set up in the system, so it's showing me the conflicts. But if you're in any sort of other report, you'll see where it's where you're allowed to deploy the report to in the different work centers. So you can then just start to kind of select each of the different areas where you're going to where you're going to put this, and then the different admin categories that exist within each of the different areas. This just puts it into a grouping category. So if you do use like groups and things for your reports, like in the work list, if you have that turned on, rather than it just sitting out in its little in its little ecosystem. And this also kind of shows you some of the more like the sub areas of where you can put this. So if I have like a particular work center and work center view, I can direct it to a specific like a specific area in that reports list. All right, but that's all I had to cover. If there are no more questions, thanks for your time. And next week, join us for fixed assets.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate it. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. Just a reminder that this session was recorded and the recording will be sent out next week. And yes, as Laura said, please feel free and make sure to join us for next week's Q&A Cafe that is going to be on the fixed asset procurement in SAP ByDesign.